morning, Rhema CC listeners, and a huge happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. I hope you're enjoying your bacon and eggs and that your socks and undies fit well. Maybe you scored a huge Toblerone to share with the rest of your family. I read a friend's response the other day when he was asked what he really wants for Father's Day, and he wrote, Toblerone to share with my kids. So apparently that's a thing. Maybe it's a possibility to some that there's nothing better than sharing what you've received. Or maybe his response was totally tongue-in-cheek. I don't know, but if you scored something yummy this Father's Day, I hope you're able to sneak off and enjoy at least some of it to yourself. More important than that, I want to say thank you for all you do as a dad, or as an adoptive dad to those who have kids in their lives but don't necessarily have their own. We need godly men in our lives, and when we are children, it's even more important for the exposure to good, safe men. Today is our opportunity to simply say thank you for being that to us or even to our children. Now let me introduce myself. I'm Lindy Jones, your Sunday morning host here at Rhema CC, and I have to say that what we have taking place this morning is probably a lot more enjoyable than most weeks when you guys are stuck listening to my boring voice. Today we have something a lot more entertaining, though that probably doesn't take much. I'm pretty good at laughing at myself, and interestingly, I noted as I prepared for this morning during this week that I think I may have learnt that skill from my dad. My mum has an amazing sense of humour too, but there's something about how my dad has always just sort of laughed at himself when he's done something silly or not overly intelligent. It taught me to do the same, and hey, life can be incredibly serious sometimes. We need to laugh at every opportunity we can. I think this simple skill taught me that when I make a silly move, I have one of two options. I can curl up in a ball in embarrassment and hide, or I can acknowledge how human I am, laugh at myself, and then choose to do things differently the next time. I credit my dad with the ability to usually, not always, but usually, do the latter of the two. So to my dad, thank you. Before we move on too quickly, I thought I should let you know that just before I came on air, you were listening to Different Drum by Blanca. But back to business. Today, this first Sunday in September, is a pretty special day in the Australian calendar. Today, we are privileged to give honour and recognition to the dads in our lives. The dads who brought us into the world. The dads who raised us. The dads who guided us spiritually. The dads who adopted us in one way or another. We might use today to remember other people's dads and how they inspired us to be better. We might struggle with the concept of a dad because we're still learning what or who a dad is supposed to be. But ultimately, today is marked on the calendar as a special day because we recognise that every one of us have been impacted by a father. Or, as I'd like to introduce you to now, we might actually be a father. I'm not, clearly, but I do have some here with me now who actually are. In this studio with me right now, I have two local ministers of religion. I have two Americans and two Australians, or maybe two Aussies and two Aussie Americans. I have two men who in particular have encouraged me to give this opportunity a go at Rhema CC each week. I have two men that I am beyond thankful for on a personal level. I have four men who have experience in the area of recording in some way, three of which are all into sound gadgets that I have absolutely no idea about. I have four fathers, two grandfathers, and one great-grandfather. I actually have four men with me who know the value of doing fatherhood with the God of all walking beside them while moving and leading through prayer and spiritual guidance from their God, the God of all. So I want to welcome and introduce each of them to you. You might recognise a couple of these voices as Rhema CC's regulars. We have Craig Stevens, Ebon Knox. I have my dad, Steve Jackson, and my other half, Mike Jones. So to each of you guys, a huge happy Father's Day. And I just want to say thank you for giving your time up to help me out this morning. This week, as I was preparing for today, I was thinking about different times in my life that my dad influenced me the most. Now, I mentioned earlier that I probably developed my ability to laugh at myself because I was raised by parents who had plenty of laughter in our home. And my dad's ability to laugh at himself taught me a lot. But I also reflected this week on the times when my dad was required to play different roles. At one time, in an effort to navigate different situations, that I or we as a family came across. Much like the way I stated that I have 4 men in the room, yet there are so many other aspects and elements of who they are as people. Culture contributes, interest and experience plays a role. The hats change person to person, but sometimes they can be similar colours or shapes, and we can learn so much from those who've walked or are walking similar paths. One particular circumstance that came to mind as I reflected back and thought about what I wanted to explore here today was from when I was around 22. Now, I'd been married to my ex-husband for about a year and a half, and we had a 12-month-old, and I was 7 months pregnant when he decided that he wasn't interested in being married or being a dad. So he walked out, and my dad, and actually my brother for that matter, stepped up, and his and their roles changed. My dad was my dad, but he also became the main male figure into my 2 daughters' lives. That was until I met Mike. One of the hardest days emotionally, even now as I look back, was the moment when I needed to be picked up from the hospital after the birth of my second daughter. My dad came to pick us up. This special moment that was supposed to be for a mum and a dad was thankfully rescued by my dad. It was a bittersweet moment because it wasn't like life was supposed to happen, but my dad was there. My dad. And he was such a calming influence and a gentle reminder that there are great men out there to fill in when those moments in parenting don't go to plan. So men, dads and men alike, I want to honour you today and really respect and validate your worth in the lives of others. Please keep being great men in this community. But now to get back to these awesome gentlemen that I have here with me in the studio. I have invited them on this morning because I know being a dad must be hard. I think as society is making a shift, the expectation of what a father can look like can make the lines look a little blurred too. And the demands that are placed on our men, I think we have to be kinder, give them the space to be themselves around the demands, dad demands being a big part of that, and just learn to support. So today is about fatherhood, yes, but it's also about the accountability and responsibility we have as a community to support them in being great dads. So guys, this first question, well, all of them really, is about your own father, and there is no pressure at all for you guys to add anything if you're not comfortable. But I want to ask if there are lessons that your father or things that your father taught you that you value as you raise your own kids or care for kids in your own circle and community. And I'll just leave that up open to you guys.
For me, like I grew up on a little farm in the hills of Kentucky, and it was just kind of a simple life. But I remember when there was farm work to do, obviously, all the time with a little cattle farm, and my dad always brought me along with me on those jobs. I'm sure a lot of those times he wished he hadn't brought me with him. The job would have been a lot simpler if he'd just gone and done it himself. But he always included me in those things, and I think I've tried to carry that into my life. Sometimes you think, no, I just want to get in and do it, but I think, no, I'd rather spend time with my kids. And so, he was never the dad to be playing basketball with me or those kind of things, but he always included me in his life, in the things he was doing, and I think that's an important thing.
I guess for mine, my relationship with my dad was an interesting one, and that's all we'll say about that. But what I did learn along the way was that I appreciated the fact that my father always wanted to check in with God, and that at times in his life he would realise that things weren't really going the way he really wanted them to go spiritually, and he checked in with God. And I appreciate that. I saw that, and that was a lesson I learned from him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lindy, I'm not used to being on the other side of the microphone in terms of doing the New Expressions program Friday mornings, and it's such a privilege to be on your program. I'm loving it. In fact, the way you framed this conversation has already left me in tears. Apparently professionals don't do that, but, all glory to God. Steve, I think I'm your biggest fan already, just listening to how Lindy framed up that story. What a dad. What a dad. Well done, hey. you know, my own journey with my dad, who has walked with Jesus my whole life. You know, he came to faith in Jesus as a young teenager, and has done his best to work out his story of salvation, walking with Jesus, and beautifully gave me a gift of what I would describe as gentleness. In fact, we just celebrated my dad's 90th only last week. And so at our house, we had family and friends over who were celebrating, you know, his longevity and the kindness and the goodness that he has walked his whole life. And there was a time I was preaching somewhere once, and I out of my mouth came these words, "I have always known love." And it was shocking to me, because I'd had this revelation, this realization of this is not a common story for people. Like to have always known consistently, faithfully, an expression of loving kindness through my parents. And gee, I actually want to be a good custodian of that gift now. I want to actually see that land in a helpful way in the world in which I walk. And Mike, as I was hearing your story growing up in the bush or in, rural properties, same with mine. I grew up in a farm, but my early sort of 0 to 5 years of age was actually here on the coast. And Dad had a panel beating shop, because he was a panel beater initially, not far from the Rhema Central Studios. Like, it was literally a couple of 100 metres away. And he tells the story as he's belting out a panel, trying to repair some panel damage on a car, and he stops and he hears this echo, and he's thinking, what's the echo sound going on? He comes around the other side of the car, and I'm helping on the other side of the car, panel beating on a panel that was completely undamaged. Right?
Fantastic.
But unfortunately, because of my help, he then had twice the amount of work to do.
No.
But anyway, gracious, kind, loving dads. I think that's what I'm so grateful I've had that in my own life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good stuff.
Oh, mine is vastly different from my fellow fathers in the room. My dad was not a nice man. In fact, he was a bully. Army veteran, sheriff, police officer, drug dealer. Parents divorced at 10, and my environment inside the house wasn't too far from the environment outside the house. It was rough. Mm-hmm. And so I didn't have a blueprint on what to do, how to love, how to cuddle. My father's never told me he loved me. He said, "You'll miss me when I'm gone." So the blueprint that I did get was what not to do when raising my children, because I knew that this wasn't right, and I knew that something was missing. I couldn't tell you what that was, but I knew what I felt. So holding my first child, my exact words to him was, I'll never let a day that doesn't go by where I don't do this, where I won't tell you I love you, where I won't greet you, where I won't kiss you, where I won't ask you how your day was, I won't ask, is there anything you need? So that blueprint that my dad left, whenever I have a question about something, I refer back to that. How did I feel, or how would I have felt if this would have presented itself? And I do the exact opposite. Now my oldest is 17, and he still lets me hug him. He still greets me and hugs me. Like last night, I went to bed early, but he was doing something else. He came in the room, leaned on the bed and laid on me and gave me a cuddle. Love you, Dad. And that makes me feel good as a father, because somebody had to reverse that. Someone had to start it off right. This is what you do.
Absolutely.
He knows he's loved. He doesn't go without. And we talk every single day. I take interest in what he does. He takes interest in what I do. We converse. We are not strangers, and we do not avoid each other in the house. We actively gravitate because there is a bond there. Same with my daughter. I want her to know what a man should do and how a man should treat her, not just from a father, but from a potential husband. This is what a guy should do for you. You're not a servant. You are equal, and he should take an interest in what you do, and it should not all be about him. It's not a man's world.
Absolutely.
Where my dad It was all about, being a man his way. Now, not his fault. He was a product of his environment. I don't blame him for that. It's just, I've been in a room with my dad, my grandfather, and my great-great-grandfather, and they all look the same, like pimps. So, I can remember sitting in that living room looking at this picture, and I asking myself, 13, what's wrong with this picture? Because it did not look normal. It didn't look right. And, I left at 17 and planned on never coming back home. But I did. I came home for his funeral because he died the next year after that. And that was a sad occasion. And what I felt at that funeral was nothing. I felt nothing. And I wanted to because, I'm grateful that he was there so I could be born. I'm grateful that there was a house for me. However bad it was, there was a house for me. Sorry.
No, it's huge. And I think that's the point of today is, I think we spoke last week. I'm going off track here, but we spoke last week about the need to be real, and I think that's where it starts, Ebon. I highly support you, and I think you've got 5 other people in the room with you at the moment who, I think that's right, 5. Can't count. It's 5 other people who are here to support you, and this is what today is about. It's about supporting fathers to say, we've got your back. You're doing a great job. So your story is powerful, and
didn't know that would hit me like that.
And that's how it happens. It's like, see, I told you I'd do that.
I mean, I love
I have this way
I do. I love my dad. I do. I just didn't like what he did, but I like the individual. I love the individual.
And I think I am going off track here, but I think there's something to that. When my pa passed away, I remember saying to my dad, you have to grieve 2 people, because you grieve the dad that you had as a kid, and you grieve the dad that you had as an older man, and it changes. The relationship does change. So it's okay. I think we have to validate and accept that whatever we feel about a person or a situation, it's okay. It's just a feeling, and it's just a matter of processing it and being okay with that. I've gone way off track, but thank you for being real. And I think that's what I would encourage. I just want to just affirm you guys for sharing that relationship, because I think being real is part of how we make things progress and change and do things better. So thank you. We have a lot to cover this morning, and we hope that those of you at home are able to stick around for a little longer on this special Father's Day. But if you're off to celebrate your dad or the dads in your village, whether that be in your local church, the friends in your life, maybe extended family or networks, we thank you for having made it with us this morning, and we hope that you do have a great Father's Day and that you can reflect on what you've learnt from your dad. Right now, we're about to hear Love Lifting Me by Tasha Layton. Welcome back to a very special morning this Sunday on Rhema CC. I'm Lindy Jones, and I have been blessed 4 times over this morning by having some pretty fantastic men join me as we discuss fatherhood and all the ups and downs that go hand in hand with such a huge but awesome responsibility. Now, I'm asking these guys, Craig Stevens, Ebon Knox, my dad Steve, and my partner in crime, life, Mike Jones, to share what fatherhood looks like to them. So, gentlemen, if you're comfortable, can you guys give us a little bit of a background into your role as a dad, as a grandfather, as a great-grandfather? I know, Ebon, you spoke a little bit earlier about your kids. Share your specific dad-type hats that we were talking about before. Maybe you can give us an idea of what your family looks like, how many kids, what sort of life stage you're in. And by that I mean there tends to be a stage that we all go through, to the baby stage, or it moves to baby showers and weddings, just so we can hear what your life looks like. And again, only if you're comfortable, share with us what fatherhood looks like for you at this current time.
Yeah, I'll start, I guess. So Lindy and I have 7 kids.
Crazy, aren't we?
I know all about being in different stages of fatherhood. And we, because our kids have such a vast age range, we're kind of in all different stages at once. So our eldest is 22, and our youngest is 3. So it's a unique stage to be in as a dad, I think, because I'm coming home from work and playing with Play-Doh and stuff with a 3-year-old, or running outside with a dog with a 5-year-old, or we're doing relationship chats with our teenagers, or the oldest kid. Our second oldest just had her first baby this year, so now I'm a grandfather as well. And
He's old.
And just so just having chats with her about baby things and changing nappies or whatever, while we're still potty training our youngest, not any of our others, thank goodness. But it's odd kind of when we're still changing nappies, but then we're doing driving lessons and other stuff. And so that's kind of a scene into our life, is you kind of get all those stages at once, which I love it. I just love just sharing their life and seeing what they're interested in.
Yeah, but Mike, you don't have any hair.
There's reason for that, yeah. I lost that a long time ago. And, there's reason I look like I do.
It's not me, I promise. Dad.
Yeah, can I just say that I think what is so vital to a grandfather, great-grandfather, is dad jokes.
All right.
Because you
My
can't
mum's in
expect...
the corner curling up going, where are we going with this?
You can't expect your children or your grandchildren to really appreciate what joy is really all about unless you put them through a lot of pain. And dad jokes are just made for that.
There you go. That's why I turned out as well as I did.
But I love dad jokes, and I get the same response as I'm sure most of your listeners would. They're usually, oh no, not this again. But the thing is that I look at my children, I think the 3 greatest children on this planet, and their children, and their grandchildren.
And their partners are pretty amazing too.
Well, I was going to get to that, but it was going to be way down the track somewhere. But I regard, and I guess this really comes, I believe, from the Holy Spirit, from the Lord, that I regard them as all my children. So I can kind of really appreciate where Moses, where Abraham was coming from when he got this concept of your children will
absolutely.
multiply, and they will be your children. And you don't sort of lose that concept. So you're concerned, as my wife is, with everything that goes on in their lives. We're concerned about our children and how they're handling and being able to cater to their children. We're deeply appreciative of their partners, Mike.
Magnificent, Mike.
And Tim, and of course Joy. And we make ourselves interested and available to all of them. I'm not sure if I know where I'm going with all this. I'm sorry if I'm losing the track.
No, but I think it's interesting what you just said. You're talking about, like, that's understanding that it's the whole father of nations thing. Like, I look at Mike often and I think, oh my goodness, we've got 7 kids. And then you look and you think, where is that going to go down the track? Like, he had to pick up everything and move to the other side of the world to be here with us. But it's like God was just implanting a new seed in the new location. And you kind of go, I don't know where you're taking this, God, but you look at how he's done things before biblically and you just go, ooh, this is kind of cool. So, yeah, no, I think it's good.
Well, I'm just having a great time listening. It's brilliant. You know, we were just doing new expressions on Friday just gone, and had cause to reflect on my own story and my dad, who his mum got born again in a park in Sydney where the Salvation Army band was playing, and someone preached the gospel and she responded to Jesus, and she dragged all of her 11 kids off to church straight after the band, following them back to the church. And my dad had his experience of Jesus and began to walk with him then, and I'm thinking Dad was one of 11. And so, you know, this idea of big tribes that kind of gets shaped by the person of Jesus, and here we are, as a result of that. Now, we've got 3 kids. I've got 3. Our eldest is 15 and permanently glued to his guitar. In fact, the guitar is in the car at the moment, and wherever we travel, he's got one at home that he's, constantly on, and then when we got to drive somewhere, then he's attached to that in the car, the other one, and just loving that. And a daughter who is 13.
Yep.
And our youngest is 10, so our age range is sort of a little bit more manageable in terms of, we're kind of all at school. We're all travelling to the same school at St Philip's, just up the road here.
Yeah.
And the teenager's probably into a new phase of his young life, that's providing some interesting stuff, massively into music and probably the music that I'm not massively into. And so I'm learning as a dad, oh, wow, I've got to keep all the doors open. I've got to figure out, hey, well, let's go to a concert. So there's a couple of concerts coming up that we've got some seats in, and he and I will go and enjoy Paul McCartney, who's going to be around, and also the Foo Fighters. Yeah. How's this? Because he's interested in the Beatles. He's 15, but just really into the Beatles. He's also into Jimi Hendrix and Metallica and everything in between. Yep. So it's not like he's not into anything, But so we're doing that together as a dad and a son to try and just keep the relational space open and
very cool.
and walk together that way.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good.
Well, I don't have a huge tribe like everybody else in the room. We've only got a pair.
We can share ours with you sometimes.
No, I enjoy only having 3 bathrooms. Thank you.
Okay.
So I'm good with that. My oldest Jackson's 17, and he's doing he was doing screen and media, but only just decided to hone into audio engineering. He wants to make music, create music. He's a brainiac. So we enjoy shooting the breeze on anything because he's a sponge. And my daughter's 15, just scored her second job at Event Cinema. So,
awesome.
Yeah, she wants to get out and do, and she's trying to decide where she wants to be. She loves hospitality, loves history, and loves law. So it's going to come down to one of those 3. So I'm hoping law because, mom gets into a lot of trouble. So, but I actually enjoy those 2. I have enjoyed Christmas with them. I've enjoyed birthdays with them because they didn't happen in my household. So I actually lived it with them. So I quite got in. I get into it because it's just something I miss, but something I want them to enjoy. But I found myself enjoying it myself.
Yeah.
A little too much sometimes, but it's just I'm allowed to have that. But they are 2 gorgeous, beautiful, well-behaved children, and I couldn't ask for anything more.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Couldn't ask for anything more.
That's very cool. All right, I'm going to just zoom in on Mike again for a moment here. As I mentioned earlier, my 2 eldest kids are from a previous marriage. So I just want to ask Mike what it was like for you walking into a ready-made family and some of the challenges you faced in that initial stage, but also throughout the last, how many years have we been married? 18. 18
Is it only 18?
Oh, that's harsh.
Oh. It feels like a blessing for many more years than that.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Good save, Gretzky.
No, I actually never really thought much about it being a kind of ready-made family that I was coming into. I had contact before I ever moved over to Australia, so I was in America. Lindy and the girls were here. Jim and Allie were here in America. And but I remember always being part of their life, like at least a year before we came over. Just because Lindy and I were always on the phone and the girls were always climbing on the chair and stuff while she's on there. I remember, early on I played hide and seek with the girls while they were in Australia and I was in America. And, they'd be going, oh, can you find us? And I'm like, are you under the table? And then, no. And then Lindy would be like, they're under the chair. And I'm like, oh, are you under the chair? Oh, you found me. And so, I was playing with them, engaging with them. And so when they first came with Lindy for the very first time to meet me, I came across to, was planning on surprising Lindy for her 25th birthday, I believe it was. And anyway, when they all picked me up at the airport.
Oh, no, 23rd.
Oh, there you go.
Birthday. Yeah.
It was, yeah, it felt like I'd already known them and they knew me. And so I just kind of fit right in. And when I first came across, I didn't have any work rights in Australia. So Lindy was working, and I went from being single to, being engaged with Lindy, and I was the full-time care for Gemma and Allie. So that was an interesting time. Just jumped straight in, changing nappies and walking dogs, carrying 2 kids with me and the dog tied to my belt loop, and just jump right in there. But we had all Lindy's brother and sister and mom and dad were right here to huge support, and they just kind of welcomed me right in as part of the family, and so that was a huge part.
I want to ask also my dad how things, when you had to shift roles, when you initially were doing you were just obviously my dad, but you're also their main male figure. I want to ask you about that time. And obviously it's been such a long time now, but just your reflection on that. It must have been tricky, just sharing those hats, if you like.
Well, I mean, to some degree it was, but I mean, they had you as a mum who was strong, and you had set agendas with those children, and they never deterred from that. And so I don't see that my role really had that much to do. I was just there, hopefully, to support you in what you're doing. And of course, not long after all that, Mike comes on the scene, and I'm in awe, and I'm going, wow, thank you, God, because this man, straight away I knew was a man of God, and I was just at peace with what took place.
See, you fooled him. All right. Thank you for being so vulnerable and just being so honest. When I think of funny times throughout our marriage, I recall a moment that I really needed to laugh at myself. Mike has always been our children's dad, as we've just talked about, even when he was overseas. And as he said, he was doing all that stuff with the hide and seek and all that sort of thing. But when I was pregnant with, I think it was kid number 6 or kid number 7. I can't remember because I've got too many. I remember announcing to my family one day that I'd worked out we'd been married for 15 years. So it was probably when I was pregnant with Ari, our youngest. And I said, that means that I've been pregnant for half our marriage. And my kids and Mike looked at me and I'm like, what? I don't understand. And I'd actually forgotten that our first 2 weren't actually biologically his. So I was like, wait, that Mike's kind of looking at me like you're a fool. What are you talking about? So it just shows you, though, that God can merge how he wants to form a family. And I think that's so encouraging just to know that we see all the things, all the obstacles, and we see things that we kind of wonder how we're going to pull it all together. But when God's at the centre of it, we've got nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
This is just before we take a break. I just have a question for each of you guys. I just want to ask you about the first time you held your first child or met your first child. And just that initial moment, I'm going to watch my dad in particular because I'm the eldest, and just ask, what was that moment like? Were you overwhelmed? Were you excited? Were you just, I don't know, what were you? Anyone can start.
Oh, well, for me, I mean, that's a miracle in your arms. And we've never forgotten the fact that there was a song actually going around at the time called, what was it called? Oh, sorry. Talking about what. Oh my goodness! Now I can't think of the song, but there was a section of that song where this person just spoke, and they talked about what are the beautiful things in life. And this song is playing in the background while Lindy's having that baby, and that baby's just been delivered, and talking of this song is this person's talking in the song, talking about what the most beautiful things, and one of the things she says is, it's that beautiful baby that you're holding in your arms, and I think, oh my goodness, this couldn't be timed any better, and that's what you were and still are. You're still my miracle, Dad. So I thank you. And
thank you.
All my kids are my miracles. So.
Thank you. We're just going to take a moment for a break. Oh no, we're not. We're going to keep going. All right. Sorry, guys. We'll just leave it open. Just roll with it. So the first moment that you met, well, you've got 2 different situations.
Yeah, Mum was a little different. So like I said, the first time was, first at the airport and the way home. The kids just kept calling my name and playing with me and stuff. And I was like, I think I'll never get that picture out of my head. But the first time we held one of our babies that Lindy and I had together, I just couldn't let her go. And I remember Lindy at one stage going, "It's okay, you can lay her down. Like, you have to lay her down. She can't get used to just sleeping in your arms." I'm like, "I just can't." Like, and she's like, "You have to go call my parents and tell them that the baby's born." I'm like, "Yeah, okay, I will in a minute." Yeah, I just want to keep holding her.
Sorry, you guys. He took a while to get to you.
The memory's quite vivid. We were at North Shore Hospital in Sydney, and the Lord had spoken to us clearly about, we're going to have a son and we're going to call him Judah. And like that was early on in the pregnancy. We didn't have any scans or anything to know anything. It was just, this is what we knew was going to happen. And so when he popped out and we go, well, we know that he's a boy and we know what we're meant to call him. And it was fairly quick, and after the labour and he's arrived and I'm holding our son, our firstborn, and Dan, my wife, she kind of disappears to go and have a shower or something, and there's this moment where I've got this life in my hands. I'm thinking, I don't know what to do. And I'm having this kind of weird little crisis moment, thinking, quick, get Dan back in here, get her in here. She'll know what to do. But I had my Bible with me, and so I flicked open the scriptures, and I just started to read Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, to my son, and buried away in the first chapter of Matthew, as you know, is this genealogy of Christ. Abraham, Jacob, Judah. Abraham, Jacob, Judah. There's your name. There's this,
cool.
And I had this. Just this amazing moment in God where he's understanding his story, just born onto the planet day one, an hour or so into the journey. And it was just this quite a remarkable experience. I don't know that I have any much more of an idea what we're meant to be doing with the whole parenting thing, than I had on that very first day, but it is an adventure.
Absolutely.
I couldn't wait. I absolutely could not wait. I was counting the days, raring forward, and when he was born, give him to me first. Could not wait. Still love it. I'd do it again tomorrow.
Yeah.
I would. No, I was there.
Fantastic. I love that you guys have been able to reflect back on that first moment, and just I can see the smile on each of your faces as you're thinking back. So pretty special moment, and what a blessing our kids are. We are going to take a break now. I just thank you again this morning for joining us. We'll be back shortly. Good morning, Central Coast. It is fantastic to have you here this morning, this awesome Sunday and Father's Day for that. We've just been talking with our guests this morning, so we've got 4 awesome men in the studio with us at the moment. But before we get into that, I just want to explore a verse that sort of hit me this morning. Actually, it was during the week, from Zephaniah 3:17. It's just talking about the heart of God and how He sees things. And as I was talking to these guys, I sort of, I thought it's interesting as they were reflecting over their own kids, to hear that God does the same sort of thing for us. It says, "The Lord your God is with you. He is mighty to save. He will take great delight in you. He will quiet you with his love. He will rejoice over you with singing." And I know in our house, he'd always be singing to our kids as he's carrying them around. And just talking earlier, Craig was talking about how he kind of panicked when he first met his son, and he was kind of going, what do I do with this? And opening up scripture and just reading it and just having that affirmation from God, just, I'll quiet you, just be with me in this moment. I think it's a beautiful reflection of how God loves us when we think of this. I see the same traits in the dads in my life, just things that like I said, with Mike, with his singing just constantly. He'd just be walking up and down the hallway singing to our kids to calm them, and he still does that quite often. He'll be singing around the house. So it's interesting to see how God challenges us I'm not a dad, but as fathers, to just understand how he calms us and just naturally just implants those things in the people that love him. I just want to also remind you guys that at 8:30 today we have New Beginnings with Greg Glory, and we also have our church on the radio at 10 a.m. So again, as I said, it is Father's Day. I want to say a big happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. And actually, I want to acknowledge the men in our Christian community in general. I spoke this morning a little bit about this, but I just want to affirm again, if you weren't listening, we are so blessed to have God-fearing men here on the Central Coast. Men that chase what is right and follow it as best as they can. I have a bit of a passion for affirming and encouraging the hearts of our men. I've worked with quite a few in my counselling field, and I just naturally have this thing for affirming men, because I just don't think you guys hear enough how special you are. So may today be a day to be thankful for our dads, yes. To be even thankful for the role of being a father, for those who are. And may today also be a day of simply acknowledging the men in our lives, regardless of the circumstances, whether they're a dad or not. Now, I have been sharing the mic with a few of my special guests this morning. I'll just repeat again who we have with us. We have Ebon Knox, our program and music director here at Rhema CC. I have Craig Stevens from the Salvos. These guys are both here on a Friday morning doing our New Expressions program. If you haven't had a chance to listen to that, check it out on Friday mornings. Craig was actually the first person that I chatted to about making contact with Rhema CC to see if there was any way that I might be able to help, and here I am.
Best recruit we ever had.
And Ebon, since I've come in here, he's been nothing but encouraging. He's been supportive and completely accommodating as I've begun my little journey here on this radio station. These two men are great men and have personally been a massive support in seeing our Sunday mornings kicked off here on this station. So I want to say thank you to both of you for that. But while you're both great men in general, you're also great dads, from what I've come to understand. And I have two other special men in the studio with me. One has been in my life since before I was born and tolerated way too much from me every day since. And the other, by some random choice, decided to live every day with me. I don't know why. My dad Steve and my husband Mike are both in the studio with us at the moment now too. I wanted to explore the world of dadhood, if you like, from a few different angles, and having both my personal world and this world in radio explored together, and Christian context too, really seemed appropriate as we explore fatherhood today. So guys, I want to ask you two big questions in this bracket of our chat, and I've placed these two questions together because they might actually overlap. Again, this is your answers, and those answers help us to work out how we can best support you as dads. So the first question I have is, what has been the greatest challenge that you've come across or through as a dad? And the second, how does your faith influence or impact your role as a dad?
I don't know. I think for me, one of the greatest challenges, just personally for me as a dad, has been when we've seen one of our kids hurt, and you can't do anything to fix that. Whether they're injured, they've fallen off the trampoline, whatever, and you think you've just got to hold them. You can't do anything to take away the pain, and to the point whether it's something small like that or it's something where they're older and you've seen them, they've made some bad choices or they've done whatever, and you've seen them go down a path that and they've been hurt, and or something's happened to them and they've been hurt. That's really tough to see as a dad, because you feel like you should always be their protector. You should shield them from all those kind of things, and you've always got to be strong, and you've always got to be together. And dads are human too, and you don't always have it together. And there's been so many times you hold your kids and you're strong for them, and then for me, I have to have some time with God then, just to kind of break with Him, and to know that in order to be strong as a dad, I need to be vulnerable with my Heavenly Father, and just to go to God and to cry to Him, and to find my strength in Him. And I think that's really tough. And I remember even little things like immunizations with the kids. I remember you're holding them, and they give you this look like, why are you allowing this to happen to me? This sort of pain thing. And I think, you always want to shield your kids from anything. And when you can't, which is just life, you just want to be there for them and support them through that, and let them know that even though I couldn't have shielded you from this, I'm going to be here with you through it. And because God is always here for us.
Absolutely.
I can't put it any better than that. Mike's done a very good job on that one. Yeah, I think he summed it up very, very well. I would just add, from my perspective, that the only thing that I guess I could really adhere to is the fact that I desire to follow my Heavenly Father as my example of what I should be, and knowing full well that I fall far too short of that. But the fact that, just as I said from the very beginning, my dad would click in with God and make sure he wasn't going off the track. And too many times I have, but also too many times, or not too many times, but just as many times, I've been able to observe who he is, what he wants of me, and what he wants of my children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and that I'm responsible for that. And the buck stops with me. So yeah.
They're great questions, Lindy. I'm so appreciative of you giving us the opportunity to really think through, and draw on what is it that I actually think about some of this stuff, and because I'm actually speaking some significant things to myself as I respond to you. And I think, what's been the biggest challenge to face, and I think maybe it's tying into what these two gentlemen have already shared, which is, your heart is to properly represent the Father. God is entirely good, and he is not to be understood any other way other than perfect love. Yeah. And anything else of an understanding of him is not a proper understanding of him. And even the other facets of him are only expressions of authentic, perfect love. And so the greatest challenge in parenting for me is not what's going on for them, it's what's going on for me. Yeah, wow. It's like, Jesus, help me to reflect the Father, help me to reflect your perfect love in the moments, day to day, the consistency of that, the loving kindness of a Father who he's always, like, his mercies are new every morning. It's like, oh, that's right, a whole nother day of mercy to come, a whole nother day of goodness to be expressed, the everlasting, this self-emptying love, the kenotic love, if you like, the others-centered love, the give love story. These are, for me as a dad, the biggest challenge is to stay in the truth that I'm in him and he is in me, to stay well loved so that I actually love well. One of my everyday prayers, we have a lot of time in the car, my family and I, getting to and from school. We're one end of the coast to the other, so we've got time together. And I was sharing on your expressions just this week, Ebon, we were talking about, the opportunity to read the scriptures together, to hear from Jesus together, to share what we're hearing from Jesus through the scriptures. But one of the other everyday rhythms is a daily prayer. We get to a roundabout on the road, and it's like, that's the prayer roundabout. That's when, no matter what's going on in the car, we stop, break, and I actually make some prayers on behalf of the kids. Yeah, that's awesome. One of which is I just speak over them that they would be famous lovers of people. That our kids, that they would actually be famous for loving people. Because I think that's the heart of the Father. And if I, Dad, get the love story going right, if I stay in a place of being loved, which is the challenge, because there's the competition of my own flesh and the world and busyness and whatever, but as I stay loved and I stay drawing from and overflowing in his love, and then I want to believe God to see that released in the next generation, in our kids as well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Amen. Well said. For me, because my children are children of color, I knew that one day one of them would come across that race issue, and I've raised them from day one. I haven't hidden anything that I haven't gone through, because I want them to be prepared of how to handle that. Yeah. And it was Jackson who encountered it first and only. Thank you, Lord. But I knew at that point it was going to be a teaching moment. And basically it was how to handle it and how to respond to it. And much like Craig, I found myself dealing with it too. And more so because it happened in a place where I never thought it would happen. And I thought, oh my goodness. But I recognized that, I needed to remain calm when talking to him and still teach him how to deal with that. But in teaching him, I found myself teaching myself, okay. And to my surprise, it was Mom who, got the claws out. Okay, hang on. No, we're not going to go in and saying that. And if he said, no, we're not going to do that either. But if no, Mom, we're not going to, maybe you should stay in the car. It was, Mama Bear came up and wanted to play defender. It was a shock, but we took that moment to talk to him and Brooklyn as well in the same room. So if she ever came across it, that this is how you handle this from one, a godly perspective to a worldly perspective, because you can't be walked over, because it also could be a chance to teach them that, you're ignorant to this whole thing. And, it may just be a simple word to you, but on this end of the table, it is not. It invokes a lot of stuff, and spoken in the wrong place, wrong time with the wrong person, you could be hurt. So it was a teaching moment for both sides. The pendulum swings both ways when it comes to this. But I'm not naive. I knew they would come across it at one point in time. This is a safe country. It is a beautiful country. But should they travel, they still need to know how to handle that. And they also needed to know how to teach their children, should they be of color. I mean, they're a lot lighter than I am, but you can still tell they're black. Mostly when they eat. They're black children. So, so I needed to actually teach that. Because that wasn't taught to me. To me, it was like, someone does this, you pick up the nearest thing on the ground, you hit them with it. No, Dad. No, Dad. That's not what you do. But, I wanted them to be able to handle that with words, because they're more powerful. So, yeah.
Absolutely. I was going to go, I'm going to skip a lot, but I was sort of exploring the prodigal son, the parable of the prodigal son, as I was getting ready for this. And as you were talking, Ebon, I thought, I know what the main story behind, or the idea behind that parable is, and obviously it's that open arms. When we go astray, we do things our own way, and just knowing that our parents will just take us in as we are and love us, and just obviously reflecting that on how God loves us too. But as you're speaking, I just suddenly thought there's other lessons in that too, in the way that we, obviously how we love and how we teach our kids that they're safe and there's a way to do things. But yeah, I find it strange as you're talking. My brain was going a million different places, and I was thinking, hang on, I thought I was going in this direction. But yeah, I just think the role of fathers, we think it's planned. We're supposed to do things this one particular way. We don't realise what that journey is going to look like. And I think you're right. I think there's these little things that pop up, and we kind of go, oh, I didn't realise I had to deal with that. Okay,
Yeah.
And that, coming back to what each of you have pretty much said, is that internal need to deal with it yourself and go, what do I do with this? How do I explore it? And, really being challenged on, okay, God, how do you see this? And how do I open my arms to the people, whether it's our own children or the people that are being impacting our children, or it's all the characters that are played. How do you want us to handle this, God? How do we keep loving like you and just keep that open space where we demonstrate love, that real depth of love. I thank you for sticking with us this morning. It's been an absolute joy having some time with these guys. So just the insight and the wisdom that they're sharing. I hope you can stick around for our next little interval. But yeah, thank you. And if you have to toddle off, I just hope you have an awesome Father's Day. Welcome back. I am Lindy Jones, your Rhema CC host for this beautiful Sunday morning. And it's Father's Day 2023. A huge welcome again to any dads or dads-to-be out there today. I hope you've been spoilt by those kiddos of yours, whether through gifts or a nice card, maybe a meal or bacon and eggs served for brekkie, or even just a phone call. Let me encourage anyone listening here today thinking, I just don't know if I can bring myself to contact my dad. Because let's face it, sometimes those situations are a reality for some of us. I pray that today is a chance to clear any discomforts or tension and a chance just to really make the most of an opportunity to breathe easy again when it comes to the relationship between you and your father or your child. A few years ago, I asked my kids to come with me to Soldiers Beach on Mother's Day. And we actually handed out single flowers to any ladies that were around. Didn't matter if they were mums, but just ladies in general. My kids thought it was a ridiculous idea, and that was until they met people whose eyes filled up with tears as they shared stories of their mums. Some had passed, some were in another country, some just didn't have a relationship any longer. And it still hurt a lot. Now this week, one of our ministers at church visited a place where they do an outreach. Our community chaplain came back and shared with me some of the agonising stories of dads who were living through grief, uncertain of where they fit in the world of parenting. Our chaplain had the honour of sitting in that moment while the weight of despair was being shed through deep, deep sadness. Those moments with others are a privilege, but they remind us too of the chances and opportunities we are given each day. I know Father's Day can be hard. If you're someone who is really hurting today, I'm sorry it hurts as much as it does. But if you're someone who still recognises that there is a chance for reconciliation, ask yourself this: will I regret not acting on the opportunity if it gets to a point when it's too late? Let the answer to that lead you to the next move you make. It's between you and God, yes. Now, in a moment, I'm actually going to pray for you. But first, I have some more questions to sift through with our guests. So I have my 4 amazing dads in the room with me at the moment: Ebon, Craig, my dad Steve, and my hubby Mike. Can I ask you, what are the best ways that we, as wives, as sisters, as mothers, as friends, or just someone in your village, what are the best ways that we can support you as a dad? Now, I'm big on the idea of the village contributing to the raising of a child, but we don't often know how to support you guys. So let me ask, how do we support you?
I think the biggest in my household was I'm huge on discipline early.
Yep.
Especially in this world where there are predators all around. And I've been the overprotective one. We go someplace, their hands are in my hand.
Yeah.
I got you. You can't wander off there. No, you can't. I'm the guy with the head on the swivel. I'm just the way I am. I've always wanted a family, and I was always going to protect my family. Well, my wife, one of 7, and very easygoing and very loud and crazy. Kids everywhere. I would have loved that, but I had the 2. So she's kind of like, I'll just let them be children. No, my thing is that when they get to that age where if something happens and you need them to obey you, they will.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you say come, they come, because children when they're young are oblivious to what's going on around them. They're hooked into that, but as parents, we see what's happening, and we can see something that's going on, and you want them to be able to come. I don't have time to have an argument, and I know that people have come from 2 different opinions on this. Should we discipline? Should we not? Should we smack? Should we not? That's you raise them any way you want to, but when you have to argue with a child on a 4-year-old level, you're going to be there for a while. So I came from the discipline side. Yeah. And that was a struggle for us. And another one of my American friends was visiting here with his family, and she got to talking with his wife, and she had the same thing. But they were a lot older than mine. And she said, listen, it's going to work out. Look at them.
Yeah.
And if they said they did, she said, your life will be a whole lot easier because they know how to obey.
Absolutely.
And so it may seem cruel at the time, or a little bit, are we being too harsh? In the long run, it'll pay off. My children do as they're told, and, they don't have to be told that often.
Yeah.
Mom comes to the door, they open it.
Yeah.
They, thank you. Jackson, yes, Mom. And it's no argument. It's no talk back. They just do, because we're fair parents. Now, they don't remember being punished at 3. Yeah. But they remember.
No, that's right.
But they remember to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Yeah.
So for us, early on, that was a struggle. But I think by the time Jackson hit 6 and Brooklyn was 4, she was fine with it because she could see the benefits. But she also saw my my friend's family, and his children were 18, 15, and 13.
Yes.
Well behaved, blah, blah. And she thought, great.
Yeah,
Great.
that's where we're headed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been my experience.
Yeah, okay, cool. Anyone else?
Come on, fess up.
I just, for mine, and I'm going to reflect on one of my children here, and I, without going too deeply involved, but the most important thing to me, right across the board, I didn't really care what my children wanted to be, what their aspirations were for life. My aspirations were that they knew Jesus, number one, and that's pretty much all I really cared about. I learned not all that long ago that prayer was my strongest ally, and I never knew it. My son had a life of freedom and loved to explore the freedom, and we'd had many a talk about that sophisticated, like, not sophisticated is probably not the right word, but very mature talk with each other on what we expected out of life, what I would like to see him expect out of life, and what he actually did expect out of life at that time. And we weren't on the same page in that particular area. Well, as time progressed, I got to a stage where I literally threw my hands up in the air and I said, Lord, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what to do. I want my son to know you and to attach himself to you. And I don't know how I'm going to make that happen, Lord. I'm out of ideas. I'm gone. I'm done. Sorry. My wife and I, got a phone call from him. And he said, can I come up and see you? Sorry about this.
It's being real.
And of course, both of us looked at each other and thought, oh no, what has happened? We started to think all of the wrong things that you think. And so we waited. Yes, come on. He walked into our house and he said, I've just finished talking to my friends. And he said, I told them, I'm going. Sorry. I'm going home now and I'm going to see my parents because I need to get things right with God. And we sat down and we prayed and we asked Jesus to come to us in our lives. And he accepted the Lord. And my biggest fear after that was, is this just going to be one of those things, yeah, I'm switched on now, but tomorrow we're back on board again to whatever. Well, I can quite happily say he has just strived every day to know Jesus closer and closer.
Ebon and I were talking last week about, I don't know, it might have been a few weeks ago, about your role in my life. And I was saying that I was talking about the generations before you and how things may not have been great with your own father at different times, but the impact you've had as a dad on my life, I would say spiritually has been, you are the one person that I would say you've been a rock, and you've done that for each of us. So just in this moment, don't make me cry. Just in this moment, I just want to honour you too, because those prayers do get answered. So thank you just for being that prayer behind all of us. And to each of you guys, the prayers that you put into your kids, I want to encourage you, they get heard. That's here and that's the listeners. Just keep praying for your kids. I don't even know what question I ask now.
I'm your dad's biggest fan, Lindy. I think you're quite a champion. How beautiful. Thank you for expressing that particularly for us. And I don't know about you, but this beautiful redemptive work that, when sons and daughters come home, there's nothing more glorious and more spectacular, I don't think, than the awakening to the presence of Jesus in that. Oh, happy days. I think your question was about how did we get best supported.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about it and thinking, oh, well, you've already done it this morning. Like, you've championed us, as dads. And I think, I think I'm a great dad. And the reason I think that is because there's a few people in my corner going, you're a great dad. Whether I'm getting it right all the time or even half the time or less than half the time.
Yeah.
Just the idea that there's people in your corner, that your spouse is in your corner, that there's friends who are just cheering you on, going, well done. I think that just adds courage to the average dad. I don't imagine there's anything more unpleasant than kind of being booed all the time. But
no, that's probably right.
The idea that, there's someone going, well done, well, gee, you nailed that. Well, loved how you handled that, loved, that sort of thing, I think just adds strength to any dad, wherever they are in their journey. And I think you've done that, even you've captured that this morning for us, just us in the room, but also to the listening audience as well. So thank you.
Well, just keep doing what you're doing, because you're doing a great job. I think you've actually answered the question I was going to end with, which was, what is your prayer for your children? So I think we've kind of captured that, is just as where we've been. But I want to close today with prayer. I've never done this before, but I want to close praying for each of you guys that are in the studio this morning, but also our listeners, the men in our life. And I just want to spend a moment. If you're interested in joining me, by all means you can jump in. Otherwise, I'll just close things off. So God, I just thank you for the role of men in our community. I thank you for the men that we're connected to. I thank you for who they are. I thank you that they are a reflection of who you are, the love that you have for us. And I thank you, and I just ask for a stirring within us to be able to support our dads, to support the dads in our villages, our own dads, our husbands, our brothers. God, we just ask for that accountability and that stirring, that you help us to know how to support them. I thank you for the role of fathers. I thank you that you are the ultimate father, and I just thank you that you show us how to love, that what these guys have talked about today is exactly that. It's a deep reflection of the love that you have for us, the way that they love their kids. And I just pray for each of them, these guys in the studio this morning. I just ask you to have your hand on them today, the days to come. I ask for your hand on those who are listening, who are facing a tough day, whether today's a day where they're remembering their dad with sadness, whether they just miss them, or whether it's a day to celebrate who they're about to be as a dad, or the fact that they are a dad. Yeah, I just ask you to just be with the men in our little world up here at the Central Coast, and just keep doing what you're doing, keep stirring the men, and just showing them how to just keep moving forward and be the men that you call them to be. Amen. Thank you for joining us this morning, guys. I know it's been a lot, but it's been fantastic to have these special guests with us. And I just, again, just want to say a huge huge happy Father's Day to each of you. I hope you have a great week, day, all of that. I'll see you next week, because we're going to be exploring Marriage Week. I'm looking forward to it then. I'll see you then. Thanks, guys.